welcome you all here today. For me, it's like coming home. All these faces around here, many of whom I've represented over... Now, you don't have to put your hands up. By the way, will all undercover officers please declare themselves now? Now, I did this in one lecture and somebody put their hand up. So we don't need to worry about them too much, do they? Anyway, no, we do. And in fact, the greatest accolade has been played today, I wasn't expecting it, but maybe I should have been, by an undercover officer who told one of the 8 very courageous women, I would have thought he's got plenty of other things to talk about, but apparently it was me, and how much I was hated. Yes, I made it. So I just want to, in a sense, just for a moment, if I may, do a little historical narrative. I mean, Courtney's done an excellent American perspective. Well, here's a British one. And I'm doing it for a number of purposes. I think, I'll be corrected looking at the front row, I'm the only lawyer, certainly barrister, who is a core participant. Now, may I say I am dismayed by that I'm the only one. And I think, and I hoped there might be others who would join to ask questions. That's our job, asking questions. And when our profession and our job is put on the line, we have an obligation to ask the questions. And that is what I hope will be done in this inquiry. Because I have a lot of questions. Now, the only reason I think, in a sense, I got my foot in the door is accidental. It's accidental because we had been pressing, on behalf of the Lawrences, the Home Secretary, to set up a review inquiry into corruption that surrounded the Lawrence inquiry and certain officers. That's how it began. Meanwhile, of course, there was a whistleblower on the outside who indicated that there had been, as no doubt Doreen and Neville perfectly well suspected from the beginning, some form of infiltration. These two things came together, you get the Ellison Review, and lo and behold, there am I being named. Not up the top, I don't expect to be up the top, but I'm there with an officer, N81, deputed to monitor me. Now, I stop in my tracks and I think, well, that's Lawrence, yeah, but wait a minute, there's all these other cases. De Menezes represented the family. Ricky Reel, you've heard from them, his mother today, represented them. Janet Alder had a little to do with that campaign, but certainly very familiar with it. And of course, when I look back over the many other cases that I've had dealings with, many questions come racing into my mind, and I'm sure yours as well. The squad was set up in 1968. When did I begin practice? 1967. It stopped, we are told, at least in that form, in 2008. That's not so long ago. So it spans the whole of my career. Now, just let's look for a moment. And I'm not giving this as a roll call of honour or anything like that, but it's a political context for me. The first major case I did was the Angry Brigade case. Oh, somebody here, yeah. So that there are people here who are younger than me, thank God. No, the Angry Brigade case, 1971. Now, that was a case, and I'm not going through any of the details of these because they can be easily found, but that was a case in which it was extremely difficult at that time to find lawyers to do the case because it was a case that involved politics. It involved the politics of the day, the Industrial Relations Bill, and a number of devices placed in London. But it was a heavily political case. So I started with that one, and I absolutely am convinced that the authorities, because of everything Courtney said, it doesn't surprise me at all. And I can list things that have happened to me, which I believe are related, whether it's a burglary, or a device under the car, and so on. And of course I did a lot of Irish cases. The Price sisters, for example. The bomb in London blew my car up. Fortunately I wasn't in it, but I was just above it, so I absolutely saw what happened. But I did a lot of Irish cases in that period. And then there's, of course, the Bradford 12. Well, there's another one coming up, very similar, mirrors it. The Newham 7. And all the official secrets cases I was doing. Is there anybody in this room, I mean, am I bananas? Don't answer that question. Is there anyone in this room who positively believes that they overlooked me in all of this and they didn't actually do what the Brits are very good at doing, which is just quietly getting on with the job of watching what I'm doing and feeding the information back? Now, of course, if you ever ask, they deny. It's not can't confirm or deny. They don't do either. They deny that there's anything, no file on, no, he's barrister, wouldn't do that. Well, I don't believe it for a minute. I don't believe it. And it took all the time to get to the Lawrence inquiry for there to be a leak of what was going on, but as a side win of that, it is discovered that, yes, in that one I was. Well, that, as I say, and I give notice now, I want to ask questions about a number of other cases. And the point about my position in this inquiry is I don't know when it's gone on. I suspect it's gone on much more than I even suspect. So, you see, you know more than I do about this. It's gone on more than I suspect. I want to know. And it's not a fishing expedition, because I now know that it certainly happened in one. If it certainly happened in that one, it's happened in other ones. That's the modus operandi of this squad. You're not telling me, are you? I'm sure you're not. I haven't listened to all the other speeches, but I heard they've been excellent quality, making the same points probably. From 1968 to 2008, a squad of this size, targeting a whole range of people, including politicians and lawyers and others and activists and so on, and they didn't know about it. I'm very sorry. The Home Office, as was pointed out just before lunch, somebody's providing the money, they know perfectly well. And I want the chain of command in this case, because the other point I'm making, and I would want to make, is there is absolutely no need, it's the first module as I understand it, no need for undercover policing of this kind or any other kind when it comes to those people who either are active, democratically active, whether you like their views or you don't, but they're allowed to do it, and those of us who are permitted to defend. Now, there's no need for a squad of that kind. There was no need for the infiltration. So the first point is no need. Second point is, how are you going to establish no need? How am I going to establish no need unless I'm able to ask the questions in relation to all these other cases which apparently have been equally infiltrated in some way or another? And I'm operating on a blind basis. Now, apparently, I'm going to be blindfolded. Well, we'll see. May the 3rd is the big decision. It's a very, very important decision. I may have to ask the questions blind, because I don't know who's been doing it or when, and I don't want to be stopped from asking those questions. But if, in fact, we end up with a situation in which there's anonymity and hearings in private, and no publication, how on earth is that going to reassure the public, never mind me personally, never mind you? It's not. It's a farce. It should not happen in that way. Now, I don't want to preempt the... Well, I am a bit... sorry about that, I'm sorry. I hope he has a good weekend. I don't want to preempt the ruling. Obviously, I can't, but I feel strongly that if the ruling does not permit democratic access, democratic exposure of what has been going on, then I'm afraid it will undercut the whole purpose of the inquiry in the first place. It's used your resources, public resources. Billions of pounds have been spent on this that is the squad that's been doing that, and no doubt the inquiry itself necessarily will incur public funds in order to get to the truth, which is really all we're wanting. We want the truth, and we want transparency, and we want accountability. Now, accountability is the word that's used often. And I think back over these years and I say to myself, well, wait a minute. Every time I've asked, I've been reassured that the government of the day have got various devices in place. Now, we heard about a new one that's coming up this year, Ripper. Well, I've always called it Grim Ripper, but, you know, that's the first act. We've got a regulation in force. We've got commissioners in force. Do they do their job? Well, sorry, I don't think they do. How did they miss a unit of this size? I don't care whether some information isn't passed on and it isn't all documented, but there are people who knew. So the fact is, there have been no protections. Otherwise, this squad would not have got away with this. You can't be a secret little squad that nobody knows about using the money that they've had to use and the resort right through to providing transport and all sorts of other things. That does not happen. It might happen once, but it doesn't happen over that length of time, as I say, without not just senior police officers. And I'm quite sure a senior police officer, whether it's the commissioner or his deputy, perfectly well knew, or turned a blind eye. It's the same. We all know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It's the British approach to governance. Somebody knew, but my target is even higher than that, in a sense. It is the people we've voted in to supposedly represent us who knew. That is back to the Home Office and people within the Home Office. And Home Secretaries are responsible. They may not necessarily know every nut and bolt, but essentially their task is to accept responsibility for the department. And that has not happened. It's just like the various forms of detention in relation to foreign wars that have been denied, that anything like that went on, or our participation in it. Slowly it gets unravelled that in fact, of course, the British authorities have had a part to play. And it's the same with this. And I don't think we should remain quiet about this until the answers are obtained in each of the models, because there are so many instances that need to be examined with due diligence and due scrutiny. And so I would suggest, and I'm sure those of you who are interested, that you attend this inquiry. And if there is going to be secrecy, we have to consider, we and I have to consider our position in this inquiry if the ruling on May the 3rd means that we have both our hands tied behind our backs. Now, I'm not threatening anything. What I'm saying is, what is the point? It's a genuine inquiry. What is the point? When the context is looking not at criminal activities, but at political activities and political defence. And I say that point has got to be emphasised, supported, reinforced and demonstrated time and again. Otherwise we'll have all been wasting our time over the years, and I don't think we have, because the stories that have come out today, and I know yesterday, and are still being fought on the streets and in the courts, mean we need to support each other. I know in a way the word's gone out of vogue, hasn't it? Solidarity. For me it's one of the most important. Collective solidarity. They may pick off one of us, but there's another one waiting in the wings to take its place. I'd like to say that about the legal profession. So let's watch this space. Thanks.